It was a tight race for the GM job in Jacksonville. It was a two-man race, and one guy came down the stretch like Secretary James Gladstone is the new GM for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Welcome to the postcast. We'll talk about it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for the second time today for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars, reminding you that we're free to subscribe to everywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you tap into that location, whether you look at them or listen to them. And you get the goods, man, like you're going to get here today on the postcast edition. All right, here's what we're going to discuss. Youth, ideas, and alignment turned out to be the thing that won the day for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why I say that? Because we're going to start the two halves of the show talking about one James Gladstone, who is now hired as the new general manager for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I will read a statement or parts of it. According to Jaguars.com, James Gladstone, previously the Los Angeles Rams director of scouting strategy, on Friday was named the Jaguars general manager. Quote, "It's my honor to introduce James Gladstone as the new general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars," unquote. Jaguars owner Shad Khan said. Here's some facts. Gladstone was the Rams director of scouting strategy the last 3 years, spent 9 seasons with the franchise overall. He was the Rams director of scouting in 2021 and the director of scouting strategy 2019 to 2020. He also served as the Rams senior assistant to the general manager / player personnel coordinator in 2018. He served as an assistant to the general manager with the Rams from 2016 to 17 with Jaguars head coach Liam Coen working as an assistant with the Rams from 2018 to 20, and then again in 22. Here's another quote from Shad. "James emerged as my choice and our choice following a painstaking but energizing interview process that left nothing to doubt." He went on to say, "Every candidate delivered, and I'm grateful to them all for their preparation and time spent with us this week in Jacksonville. In the end, we found James to be a class ahead and exceptional in every regard: vision, new ideas, communication, chemistry, and a keen understanding of the league and our team, to name a few of many virtues he will bring immediately to the Jaguars." He had other things to say, but that's where I'm not going to read it verbatim. You can go on Jaguars.com and check that out. Here's my opinion. Good. They went through the process. They found their guy. Everyone thought it was someone else. I had heard it was Ian Cunningham. And then they left room for themselves to be blown away by the process. And I think that's a very, very good thing. You know, you want the process to open up. And then when the team is blown away by that process, and that's one of the things I said, let's just see what happens. So for weeks, people have been asking me, and I mentioned this on the podcast that I posted earlier. Folks have been asking me, who you prefer? I say, whoever they come out of that process thinking is the best one, that's who I prefer, because alignment is so, so important. And where there's no space, there's probably healthy debate and healthy disagreement, but no one has any ulterior motives. There's no space for folks to wonder who's responsible. It's a three-headed monster working underneath Shad. They'll all report to him individually, but I don't think it's going to be an issue because I do believe this is a very, very together process. It's hard to do that when you got an old school guy running the team, especially one that haven't been successful, but he has a lot to prove. Now what we'll see is, I don't think Gladstone's going to be beholden to anything that is already happened, including draft picks. They don't mean they're going to go and start changing people, making wholesale changes to the team. But I do believe that there's an air of freshness and new ideas and different types of thinking that comes along with this decision. Alignment does matter. I think Ian Cunningham, from what I heard, showed himself very well. But Ian was trained by 2 heavy hitters, and he probably has a way of doing things that might be a little bit different, or there may have been things you had to work through constantly for everybody to be on the same page. They're going to get off and running really, really quick here, right? Gladstone knows Liam very, very well, and may even know a lot of those people that are on the staff with him. But more or less, he also understands the process. He understands where Liam wants to go with the team, what type of players. And the one thing Shad did mention that was very, very important to me is communication. And that's one of the things that I have talked about ad nauseum on our show about messaging. And that's pretty much the same thing that communication is, but it's a little bit different, right? But the messaging is super, super important. The communication is super, super important. I think what it'll do is it'll alleviate a lot of the things that you've heard in the past where they were wondering why things didn't go from practice to the playing field, or why this player isn't playing and he was picked here, and how come the coach can't explain why a guy's a healthy scratch and he was a second-round pick. All of those things matter, man. And a lot of these things are things that we hear from or we talk about in the media. One of the things that I've always said is where there's smoke, there's fire. If we're talking about it, sometimes some of that is true, where, that has to be a little bit of the discussion that was going on in the building. So now you don't have that anymore. I don't think you'll have that anymore. I think all of their energy is going to be spent on what they have to do collectively to solve issues and not or to find solutions, as opposed to always trying to figure out, if we can identify what our problem is. They say if you don't know what it is, you can't fix it, right? But you should know what it is if you're the one doing it every day, and you don't have to sit and regroup and turn around and look, unless you have multiple people involved and no one is on the same page. So James Gladstone is named the new general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll talk a little bit more about youth, ideas, and alignment, and why I'm happy for this decision, but I'm probably happy for a different reason than the fans are. We'll discuss that more here on a postcast on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or we want to be on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we're here with a postcast live here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. Once again, at the very top, James Gladstone is leaving Los Angeles and he's coming to Jacksonville. In fact, he's already here, and I don't think they're going to let him leave, right? We'll send somebody to go get your stuff. He's here, very, very young. The Jaguars have a lot of youth in their staff. I did go through their coaches yesterday and actually read bios and look at experience. They're going to have experienced people in the building. And I do know that they had interviewed Ron Rivera for a role, and I don't know what that role is. So maybe they still have the opportunity to go out and add an older veteran coach also to be a special assistant to the coach. They've done a really, really good job, though, of putting this thing together where all of the parts are the same, right? And it doesn't mean that they're naturally going to have success. I got people over here talking about Rams East and all of that. Hey, I feel you. But it does mean at least they're starting off from a place where you expect that everybody is truly on the same page and they understand what each other has to do, and that there'll be real good communication so that they can get the Jaguars on track. Now, ideas and alignment are a really big deal. Like I said, I really do believe that Ian Cunningham, because he was the guy that I was told last fall is the hottest guy in the league, right? And for whatever reason, he didn't get the job here, and he's been passed up a couple of other times. I do think this is about a new way of doing business, where the Jaguars are going to have a coach-centric team, and normally you don't, with the exception of Kyle Shanahan, you don't really get a coach to have all of this sort of power that it seems like Liam Coen has now. I really do believe, though, from a league perspective, this is the way it has to be. Sean McVay is this way, and not only is McVay that way, but you have seen now an older coach, Andy Reid, kind of has it that way, right? And he's super, super accomplished. But what you've also seen is you've seen Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell looks to be the face of the franchise and is the face of the franchise. That's a very coach-centric operation. But Dan Campbell, every chance he get, he tells you about Brad Holmes, his right-hand man upstairs. And Chris Spielman has been a big part of what they've done up there as well. But I just think that everybody's in lockstep, man. And that's what this is all about. This is all about everybody being on one page. And even if you ain't on one page, you can stand tall with your positions. They'll try to stretch those perspectives and bring things together. And it'll give the Jaguars an identity as opposed to one guy making the decisions who's not a coach, and then just getting the coaching staff to kind of go around it. Now, I mentioned this on the pod earlier. I'm not going to poo-poo that because Philly is a GM and owner-centric team. And there are a lot of people that believe, they can find anybody to get their coach. Doug Peterson won the Super Bowl, and now Nick Sirianni has won one, and everybody's giving Lurie and Howie Roseman that love. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. I just think whatever they were going to do, whether it was going to be coach-centric, whether it was going to be an egomaniac, former coach as the GM, whatever it was going to be, I felt like it had to be like this. Because over the years, without getting specific, because there's no need to do all of that these days, you always got the feeling, and this even goes back to the regime prior to this last one, you always got the feeling that there was a little bit of difference or indifference between the people who had to make those decisions. So I'm all for it, and I'm glad, and I'm happy. It's not what I thought was going to happen, but as I kept telling people, they didn't have to do what I wanted them to do. I wanted them to do what ended up being the best for the team, based on what they saw in the process that me and none of y'all knew what was going on, except one dude on Twitter. He knew everything. But the thing that I was saying about that is this. This wasn't about winning an award on social media. This wasn't about getting a rock star. And I know a lot of people feel that way, like he's a rock star, he's young, he's a young whippersnapper, all of this. To me, it was never about that. It was just flat out get the best candidate based on the principles and the things that you all have deemed important with this new alignment that you have. That is what it was to me. I'm not worried about all that stuff. I'm not worried about the fluff. I'm not worried about what it looks like. I'm not worried about that he obviously dresses better than Ian Cunningham. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. I'm tired of trying to worry about some dude's mustache and some rock star here and some. I remember when Shad was a rock star, and then I remember he wasn't, and the team was losing. So I've never gotten caught up in all of the fan stuff like that. I do know I just wondered why some people in the media were, and if they didn't mention alignment, why they were, how could you have a favorite when you're not a part of the process? You have to almost listen, right? Unless you knew Gladstone was going to knock it out of the box, which obviously he did. I had heard he was doing really well. I heard they would have been okay with Ian, but this ain't about being okay. This is about doing what is best and getting the absolute best. Shad Khan deserves some credit, man. You know, sometimes people get caught up and they do things and they don't work out and they want to keep justifying it. And then they get to the point they get defiant and they don't want to listen to people. That's not what happened. And I don't know who got into his ear. I don't know if it was because of the fans. I don't know if it was people from around the league. Don't know if it was Boselli. Don't know. Maybe it could have been Liam Coen taking himself out of it. But once he decided he was moving on from Trent Baalke, and I told people, and I want to be very careful when I say this, Trent Baalke was always nothing but nice to me. He was never personal. I think Brother Dog and them thought it was. It wasn't. The way you feel right now, and maybe 80 to 90% of the reason you feel that way, that's why I wanted it done. That's why I have been for 2 years saying clean sweep. Well, 3 years, start it over. Clean sweep. This is what I wanted to happen. Not to try to come in and fix something that was already started on, like getting another mechanic to work on your car after the other dude screwed it up. No, we dropping a whole nother engine and chassis in this baby. All right. And that's what we're going to do. And we're going to get another guy to drive it. That's what I wanted. And I wanted it for the very reasons y'all feel the way you feel right now. And this is just the off season. There's a lot of work to do. A lot has to be done. I don't expect things. I'm not saying it won't happen fast or quickly, but I am going to give them grace and give them time to do this correctly. I don't want them to screw it up. So however much time they need, I'm going to be willing to watch them make progress. But one thing you can rest assured and be assured of is I'm going to give it to you straight with no chaser here on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you tap in each and every day. James Gladstone is the new GM. I know we're going to have a lot to talk about as we approach the combine. It's going to be very interesting to see how they procure talent, too, for this football team. You guys, thank you for joining me here on the postcast. Make sure you check me out each and every day on Locked On Jaguars and on Locked On NFL twice a day. Early in the morning, Tyler Rowland with a double shot of espresso, and me, I'll come in about 2 o'clock every day on the Barbershop Show. Make sure you tap into Locked On NFL. We're at your team every day. Y'all got a new GM, man, and we got a whole lot that we need to be talking about, and we will do it as we prep for the combine this weekend. I'll do some research, and there will be more here on Locked On Jaguars. Thanks for joining me. Take care of each other. Enjoy the weekend, Jaguars. I'm happy for y'all. We'll see you next time.